Hello and welcome to the eTech podcast with me, your host, Ryan Maughan. I have been involved in the development of electrified vehicles and machines since 2005 as an engineer and a business leader. This podcast is the product of my passion for electric and autonomous vehicle technology. I'm here to share knowledge from some of the world's leading experts, as well as my own insights. Join me as we accelerate the transition to cleaner, safer and smarter vehicles and grow the industry around the world.
So for today's show, we've got a really great guest lined up. I'm here today with Eric Azeroual from Danfoss. He is the Vice President of their on-highway business unit with the Danfoss Editron business within the company. So welcome to the show, Eric. It's really great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, well, and just to sort of get it out there before we start, I've known Eric for a number of years through various incarnations of my life and his life. So it's really great to catch up because we haven't spoken in quite a while. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. I think if we could start off and you could just give me a sort of roundup of your background, you know, how you got into doing what you do now, and you know because you've been in the electrification industry kind of forever. So how do you get started?
Yes, so thanks, Ryan. I graduated electrical engineering in 2004, and then try to figure out where I could have fun in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and I landed at TM4. It was really a pretty cool technology of hub motors or wheel motors, right? And that was fun. We tried to do that, but we diverted quickly into developing products for the commercial vehicle space, which I did at TM4 for a number of years, from 2004 to 2018, 19. We were then acquired by Dana, which was also a great experience, being part of a tier one, and always worked in sales, application engineering, marketing type of roles. And now I'm part of the Danfoss organization, which is a very interesting play, actually, because as you can read, the transition to better and more efficient power electronics and better cost competitiveness in that space, Danfoss is very well positioned for that play, which is even more relevant for passenger cars or commercial vehicles.
Yeah, the Danfoss have been pretty active the last few years, kind of building up this Editron business unit, and I mean, I guess like a lot of tier ones, you mentioned TM4 being acquired by Dana, and they Dana themselves were quite acquisitive, lots of acquisitions to build up their electrification group. So, tell us about Danfoss and Editron and that business unit and what they're doing.
Yeah, so within Danfoss Editron, we have three business units. We have the off-highway business unit, we have the on-highway business unit, and we have the marine business unit. All three business units focus on their different customer bases, of course, but also some products are tailored for that market, right? So, for example, marine has specific tailored products for that market, off-highway as well, and then on-highway as well. And really the purpose of the on-highway business unit is to create a significant scale both in motors and power electronics to be cost competitive in the off-highway business.
Okay.
Danfoss is really the leader of off-highway. I think depends on what you look at it and how you look at it. But at any given point, depending on the product range or the geographical region, we have about 40% of the hydraulic business in off-highway. So obviously, electrification becomes a very important play for Danfoss to be able to do the transition and remain a competitive player, right? So really, Editron is the future of Danfoss Power Solution.
Yeah.
And that's why we're putting a lot of effort, a lot of acquisitions, a lot of effort in that space. And we think that building it in those three business units allows us to take a significant market share once the off-highway business becomes bigger, because it's kind of lagging, right, Ryan? I know you know a lot about the off-highway industry, but it's kind of lagging a bit behind commercial vehicle. But it's getting there. It's getting there quickly, and we think that the products that we make for commercial vehicle can easily be used in off-highway.
Right. Yeah. We do see the whole industry is kind of tipped on its head in the last few years, but particularly the on-highway commercial vehicles been really driven by regulations, and there's some specific ones in different regions and cities, and the new European CO2 reduction targets for truck makers and that kind of thing. And the off-highway side haven't had the same regulatory sort of pressure as such for where they sell most machines. The little machines for city centers and things, sure, but actually the other machines, it's more about saving fuel or making machines more efficient at the moment. So electrification has to be cost effective and give performance improvements and things like that, which in the on-highway side, there's more regulations to comply with that sort of it's a bit more of a it's about carrots in the off-highway side, but there's some pretty big sticks in the on-highway side. I think lots of interesting changes happening in the marketplace. But it's interesting because I know Editron, and I've known you a long time, and also known some of the other key people there, like Chemo, a long time. But I think some people wouldn't necessarily recognize the Danfoss name for the products that you're offering, that motors and on vehicle inverters and things like that. So how did that kind of come about? What's the story behind where you've come from on that side?
Yeah, so for on highway, the presence of Danfoss came from an acquisition, right? In 2018, Danfoss made the acquisition, I believe, of Vizero, and then shortly thereafter of UQM in the US. And UQM was purely playing in on highway. So at that time, UQM had a strategic project with Meritor, which is now kind of owned by Cummins. That's how this industry is moving quickly. But so when Danfoss acquired UQM, we basically acquired that on highway business and decided to remain in the on highway business to basically benefit from that scale.
Yeah.
And the good thing about on highway is it kind of drives a lot of focus, and it drives a lot of design for manufacturing and cost consciousness.
Yeah.
Which means if you developed a cost competitive and a high performing product for on highway, and then you reuse it in off highway, you can generate some significant profits out of it, right?
Yeah.
That's what most tier ones are doing, right? They're serving, a lot of the tier ones are serving off highway with an on highway product, when it makes sense and when the power makes sense and all that stuff, right? Not for all the applications, but when you can do it, it's pretty attractive because you could actually generate some interesting profits with that.
Yeah, and it in some ways it's quite hard to do it with sort of on highway light duty passenger car things, but in that heavy duty on highway side, it's a much easier transition into the off highway market. So I mean, UQM, like I always think I've been in the electrification industry for a long time, and then you kind of realize how long UQM had been around as a business, and 30 years old or something like that as a company.
Oh, I think longer than that. I don't know the history because I've asked a guy that's still at Danfoss that's been with us for 30 years. So I think it's been longer than that. I think it's the 1960s or something like that. So let me dig into that history. I probably need to get that. I've been at Danfoss Editron. I've been with Danfoss Editron since the beginning of May of this year, so it hasn't been too long. But yeah, UQM did some great things into the space early on for both of us who followed them, and then I think they had a big turning point with Coda. I don't know if you remember that program with Coda.
Coda, yeah, Coda EV.
Which was kind of a Chinese imported vehicle that was converted to electric in the U.S. I think in California they were in LA or something like that. And EQM was the supplier of the powertrain there. That didn't go well because Coda went under, and that's when that was a big turning point for UQM when UQM decided to kind of refocus on commercial vehicles at that time. And I think that was a very good decision actually.
Yeah, and allowed them really to build some great products for markets that were electrifying really early, like the bus market, transit buses and things like that.
Yeah,
and that's a market. I mean, you guys are pretty strong still in things like transit bus.
Yeah, so we have a customer by the name of Proterra, which we supply powertrains to, and we have others that are not public, but Meritor is public. Meritor is not serving the transit bus, mostly the trucks.
Yeah.
Trucks and perhaps school buses, but yeah, the truck chassis, let's just call it, right? And it's interesting because Meritor did take an interesting step, of just focusing on e-axle, whereas all the other tier ones were focusing on a bit of everything, right? So a bit of e-axle, but mostly central drive.
Yeah.
You could see that from the ZF product portfolio, and you could also see that from the Dana, for example, product portfolio as well.
Yeah.
And both strategies are good. It's just, I was surprised at the speed at which commercial vehicles was turning to e-axles. I really did think it was going to take longer.
Yeah.
I thought e-axles were going to come kind of at the 2028, 2030 timeframe.
Okay.
But they're coming, way sooner than that. So I was pleasantly surprised at the speed at which commercial vehicles were going at it at e-axles versus central drive, right? Because back in the Data TM4 days, the central drive was the bread and butter. It still is very popular. It's easy to integrate.
Yeah.
But it takes all the space right in the middle where you need more battery space, right?
Yeah, so it makes the battery pack engineering much harder because you end up with lots of sort of distributed modules of batteries squeezed in.
Yeah, and you lose the space. Even if you still have distributed spaces in an existing chassis, you lose the central space. So I think that for a commercial vehicle, it is the way to go, and all the tier ones are focusing on that.
Yeah, and great that you guys are right at the center of that. And actually very recently, so Danfoss kind of quietly becoming this major player in the space through these acquisitions, but very recently you guys pulled off another huge acquisition that I think surprised a lot of people in the industry with Semicron. So is that something that you can I know it's really fresh.
Yeah, so Semicron is really a kind of a merger of our businesses. So we had a very big, very up and coming growing business by the name of Danfoss Silicon Power DSP, and really it's the merger of those two businesses, which is really important because, as you know, Ryan, scale is very, very critical. And both entities had a very healthy order book, and really the challenge now is going to be execution, right? We have to be perfect in execution and delivering according to our commitments. So that's going to be the focus. Both companies now merged into one big company with a full order book. The challenge is going to be on the execution. But yeah, really an interesting merger. When I first joined Danfoss, I heard about this, and I was super excited because I knew about the strengths and weaknesses of each products and each technology. So the Danfoss silicon power module and the Semicron module, they have their own recipe and let's say sweet spot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I knew that by having those two kind of products or product families in our portfolio was interesting. Was a very interesting value proposition for Danfoss.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, right? Because you can actually get to see the development of that power module as well, right? Because right now we're at the infancy of that technology.
Yeah, yeah, and Semicron is another one of these businesses that is, it's sort of been around in the electrification space for a very, very, very early mover in that space, a long, long time. Those Sky modules kind of sort of ubiquitous as a platform to use in inverters.
No, yeah, exactly. I've known him. I've known him for forever as well, and we've used them many times. But it's interesting to see that as you referred to Kimo in his Vizero days. Basically that company always worked with Semicron. So for the Danfoss Editron team, which again came from Vizero and UQM, this was like even more natural fit for us, because if you notice the product portfolio Danfoss Editron has, it's basically a big portion of that is a Semicron Sky inverter that we then put our own controls and software on top of it. But for us, it was a super good natural fit because we've always worked with Semicron before. So even more interesting for us to get closer to develop a better product and to start developing solutions that are more cost competitive.
Yeah, properly kind of bringing that sort of supply chain inside the family, so to speak. Is there more to come, do you think? Are we likely to see?
Yeah, we're so you see for us there's high voltage, and that's pretty much set for us. We have our pieces of the puzzles, and now we need to execute and develop competitive products. So we're going to be refreshing that product portfolio quite soon on the high voltage side. And for us, high voltage, it's the 750 plus, right?
Yeah.
Volts DC. Then there's the low voltage side for us. That's very important to take a play. And for us, low voltage, just to be clear, it's 144 volts and less, right? That's what we call low voltage. And as I told you before, right, the off-highway space is really critical for us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at all the hydraulic products we sell and all the other auxiliaries like joysticks, valves, and pumps, motors, whatever it is in the off-highway space, a lot of those small vehicles have a high content of Danfoss product today, and those vehicles are being electrified, as you said at the beginning of your intro, at a very high rate, right? So if you talk about aerial work platforms, scissor lifts, boom lifts, all these vehicles are getting electrified very, very quickly at a very high rate, and it's important for us to have a solid product portfolio in low voltage. Not because we want to be present in that market, not just because we want to be present in that market, but also because we feel like if you have the portfolio in low and high voltage, you have a higher chances of being relevant in big OEMs, right? So if you take the big OEMs of this world in the off-highway space, they've all announced that they're going to have full electric vehicles in low voltage and high voltage by 2025, right? I'm not going to name them because we all know them, but it's important for us to be relevant as Danfoss, to be able to offer that portfolio, but also to offer even the software compatible from one product segment to the other product segment, so that it's seamless, right? And for those of you who know the Danfoss product with the +1 software application, That's what we want to offer. We want to offer, whether you're doing a high voltage product and a low voltage product, you interface with the same standards and the same, kind of user interface that you're used to from Danfoss.
Yeah, and so those.
So that's what's next. Low voltage is next to answer your question.
Okay, and I mean, there's been a lot of sort of acquisition activity on that side of the market as well. It's sort of there's a few big players who, particularly for motor inverters and such like that were very well known, and almost all of them have been part of some sort of acquisition or M&A activity. Because
we saw Curtis last couple of months ago. That was interesting.
Yeah, that was really interesting because Curtis, very long-standing family-owned business, very successful business. And see Kohler Engine Company acquiring them. That was quite a surprise. I think to a lot of people. The Sevcon company obviously sort of going through acquisition by Borg Warner, and then sort of some bits of it then going into Turntide, which is where my old business went as well. So there's kind of been quite a bit of stuff going on in the space. So always interesting to see where you guys end up going on that side, and when you can talk about it a bit more.
There's not much left though.
Yeah, it's surprising that when we kind of go through this sort of thing, there are still some great companies out there, and there's new companies coming along all the time as well with good sort of offerings and IP and things like that. So very interesting. So that kind of strategy to have a full product range, like from the low voltage right the way up, that's really that's a massive statement of intent from Danfoss in terms of you're kind of putting a big stake in the ground there that your business is going to be able to electrify everything that you currently serve with the hydraulics business, and then so much more beyond that in sort of trucks and buses and things. That's going to be you'd be a very major tier one in that space.
Yeah, because we see the transition as being we have to be very relevant in power electronics across the board, from low voltage to high voltage.
Yeah.
We feel like that's going to be a very important competitive edge. So power electronic is going to be the key. We will have motor capabilities, motor manufacturing sites.
Yeah.
But we feel like this is more of an application engineering function than more we want to do it all ourselves kind of thing, right?
Okay.
So for motors, we do manufacture a lot of them. We will continue to manufacture a lot of them when the volume makes sense.
Yeah.
But for a lot of the motors that we're going to need for off-highway, and as you know, like let's take a typical off-highway or even an on-highway vehicle. You can have anywhere between 2 to 10 motors on a vehicle, right? So and they have different characteristics, different performance maps, for different duties that they do. So obviously we're not going to get into making all the motors ourselves, but it's important that we're able to design them and able to source them intelligently, either source the rotor and the stator and then package it ourselves, or source the whole thing, or make it if the volumes make sense and if we feel like it's a competitive edge. So on the motor side, that's our vision, and on the inverter side, our vision is to manufacture it and then have our own software and secret sauce on it. Because again, our software platform is key to enable the sales.
Okay.
So really, the power electronics is in our view where we come along.
And do you go or do you see yourselves going beyond inverters in you've got the other key power electronics devices?
Absolutely. So we for one of the largest truck OEMs, we built the onboard charger. So that's a 43 kilowatt AC charger, which also has an EPTO function. So that's a very interesting product that we're unique in doing, and you could. It's a very complex product. I mean, Ryan, you're a much more clever power electronic engineer than I am, but when I saw that box, I was really amazed at the complexity.
Funnily enough, I saw that box, but for something to do with your customer, and I didn't realize you guys made it, and I was like blown away because I couldn't get my head around this sort of ePTO functionality and the AC output, and I'm like, what are they've put so much, that would, as a standalone component, that would be such a massively costly part, but it's such an amazing bit of integration into the onboard charger. It's a really cool bit of kit.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a pretty nice competitive edge, and that's where we differentiate ourselves, right? So it's a complex part. Not a lot of companies want to do this or can do this. It takes a lot of resources and manpower and testing capabilities. The testing center we have for this thing in La Paranta and Filin is super impressive if you look at the testing center that's been put in. But I think it's a very useful product. If you look at commercial vehicles for the next, let's say from now till 2028, 2030, there's not going to be a lot of charging infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's going to be mostly fleets that are going to buy this. And if you could give them a 43 kilowatt, AC charger, that's a relatively low cost charging station at the fleets on the fleet side, they can charge that truck. If that truck has about 250 kilowatt hour battery, which is small, but that's good enough for urban delivery. I think it could serve the kind of easily overnight charging.
Yeah.
As soon as it gets bigger than that, obviously, like 400 kilowatt hours or 500 kilowatt hours, then the AC charging is an option to have a low cost charging solution, but it's not the option. I mean, there's going to need some DC charging to compensate for that. So
yeah, much like with a car, where you DC fast charging is great and that's optimum, but for a truck with a 500 or 800 kilowatt hour battery pack, that's a megawatt scale charger, and there are not going to be that many megawatt scale chargers.
Exactly. So on the part of the OEMs that they're going to use AC charging, I think it's a good way to enable those sales for the next couple of years until we see the deployment of these fast charging sites. But I agree with you.
Well, almost every truck as well.
EPTO will stay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Sorry. Exactly. Yeah. And almost every truck has to park, because drivers have to rest. So there's always going to be, you could envisage in a sort of overnight truck stop, like all of the trucks being connected to maybe not 40 kilowatt, but a sort of, decent AC shore connection to charge the batteries and provide heat and air conditioning and stuff for the driver while he's resting. So
exactly.
Big product area, and similar question with DC converters. Is that in your sort of product vision somewhere that you'd like to go as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It is not for on highway, but for off highway it is, and we do offer that today in our off highway business. But it's big boxes, big DCs for bigger vehicles, and it has a lot in common with what we supply even sometimes in our marine business. So we kind of share those product ranges from off-highway and marine, in terms of DC-DCs, and the DC-DCs also come with inductors, huge inductors that we package. I mean, for us they're huge, but if you take them and put them next to what they're used to in those big mining vehicles or in those big marine applications, they're actually very compact. So
yeah,
but they're still way too big for what we need in on highway.
Cool. Oh, interesting. So my next question is about, and you've kind of mentioned this a little bit already, but from your perspective, you've been in the EV space for a long time. You're at TM4 when, back in 2004, there weren't many of you there, and you've kind of like seen the businesses go from very low volume sort of prototyping and projects, and now with Danfoss, you're doing this like massive scale up activity. When you're only making a handful of things, it's sort of difficult, but in a way it's easier, because if you have a problem, you only have a problem on one or two, not on thousands and thousands. What do you see, as you're scaling up now, and the business is kind of these businesses transforming into higher volumes. What do you see as the kind of key challenges with that, and how is Danfoss dealing with that as a business?
Yeah, so that's a good question. On the on highway side, it's really hard because it's not our natural business, as you know. We're really not naturally drawn by the off highway industry, and we have our distributors and our channel partners, and our service network is pretty well established in that market. And for on highway, the key is to work with the tier one. So, for example, if you take Meritor Cummins now, right? We're going to supply through them, and they have their own service and channel, and they'll make sure that we have the appropriate structure. They have the appropriate structure for service, and then we need to be able to follow that. But
Yeah.
we won't. It's going to be very difficult for us to develop that across the globe for the on-highway business. So we have to carefully choose our programs. We have to carefully choose our customers and make sure that it doesn't stretch us in terms of service and aftermarket. So that's on the service side.
Yeah. What about manufacturing? So inside the plant?
So, in terms of manufacturing, we have on highway, we have 2 locations, and we're considering a third location. But we have 2 locations today. One is in Longmont in Colorado. Beautiful place. I don't know if you've been there.
I have, yeah, a couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, something. It was amazing. But what a backdrop to a factory.
It's a pretty cool place, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the old UQM facility that we've invested a lot to make it a solid manufacturing location this year, and we'll be investing more next year to scale it up to the volumes that we need it to be.
Right.
So that's the one in the U.S., and then we have another one in Norborg, actually close to our headquarters, where we manufacture this charger, and it's pretty interesting because that line is fully automated. So,
right.
With robots manipulating the material from the start to the end. So that's the second one we have, and we're considering a third one in Europe. The location is not final yet, but a third one in Europe to be able to meet our customers' needs. But I guess the answer is, Danfoss has locations everywhere in the world. And even now with the Eaton Hydraulics acquisition, we even have more presence and scale.
Yeah,
we'll put the plant where the customer is the closest and where they need it to be. What the example we have I gave you on the charger is pretty interesting, right? Because we went from for full automation, and we didn't necessarily go for full automation because of the volume. We went for full automation because of the quality,
right,
that we wanted to have in this product. And you saw the product; it's super complex.
Yeah.
And quality and peace of mind was much more important for us at that point. And we wanted to make sure that we could ensure good quality of the product once it comes out of the production line. We also wanted to remove the cost of labor on that product because, as you know, cost of labor in Europe could be quite high.
Yeah.
So we really made this line really a very interesting showcase line, and you're more than welcome to come and see it if you come to Denmark. I'll show it to you. But I was super excited of seeing this line. I saw it for the first time a month ago.
Fantastic. Does that sort of draw on? Because Danfoss, I mean, again, something people don't realize, but you've got a huge business unit making industrial electronics and controls and things already. So you've got inside the overall business, there's presumably a kind of army of manufacturing guys and automation people and that sort of thing internally within the group.
That's right. So we have 3 segments. So we have Climate Solution, we have Danfoss Drives, which is the segment you referred to, which makes a significant amount of industrial inverters.
Yeah.
And then we have Danfoss Power Solution, which is essentially 50% of the business of Danfoss. It's a 5 billion euro business this year, approximately.
Wow.
And that's where Danfoss Editron is, because it goes back to the premise that I did at the beginning. The goal for Danfoss Editron is to be ready to replace every hydraulic in an off-highway machine by an electric system, right?
Mm.
So that's why Danfoss Editron is kind of sitting in Danfoss Power Solution.
It's an interesting. Feel free to not answer this question, but it just strike me as a bit strange. Obviously, Danfoss did this huge acquisition of the Eaton hydraulics business, and as a kind of electrification guy, that seemed like maybe a business that was going to be under pressure because of electrification, and I'd almost made a career up until that point of taking hydraulic systems out of things, replacing them with electrical stuff. But I guess Danfoss as a business, felt that still had, was still going to be around and a strong business for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. So I had the same reflex as you, by the way, because I'm an electrification guy at the core, right?
Yeah.
But it's already delivering some amazing results. So Danfoss is really making sure that this acquisition was is super is profitable and profitable quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of what was acquired as well, if you look at hoses and fittings and connectors, there's a lot of them in off highway, and it's a critical component. It's pretty much a big failure point in an off highway vehicle. So I also think that it was actually a very clever move, because as people are getting away from it, hydraulics, and investing in electrification, so is Danfoss. But Danfoss invested to have a even bigger market presence and share of wallet inside our customers. So that was a pretty interesting move at the right time, I think. Now, it's debatable at what pace the electrification rate will happen. But even if you take a small machine, electrification happens, but the hydraulics still stay. So, for example, you have an electric motor drive the pump, and you still have those hoses and fittings in there and so forth. So, the full replacement of hydraulics is going to take a lot of time, just because of power and torque density and some applications and stuff like that. You know this probably better than I do.
Yeah, so you might simplify the hydraulic system and maybe lose the sort of main propulsion unit, but you're going to still retain a lot of hydraulic actuators and pumps and other things like that in amongst it. So really interesting. So in the kind of business then that you're in, you're focused on the on highway side. You've got colleagues who are focused on marine and off highway, which again, I thought this question sounded good, but now I'm asking it and I feel bad.
Okay,
which is the best? Which is the best? So, which is the most interesting, do you think, for the electrification business? If marine or off highway or on highway?
I mean, for me, it's clearly on highway, because that's where I grew up, and that's where I feel very well connected, and I think that's what's accelerating it. Off highway is super interesting, because every customer is different, every application is different, and it's a completely different market dynamics, in the off highway industry. So on highway, it's more of, okay, give me your price, your spec, and I'll call you back kind of approach, right? In off highway, our focus in off highway is to work with the OEMs that need our engineering power, that need our engineering support. So we come in, we help them, electrify their machine. It's more of a partnership than it is in on highway. So the sales cycle is different, the relationships are different. I mean, it depends. For my personality, I would say on highway it fits my personality better.
Yeah.
But I do like the off highway approach of working. And if you look at the off highway business, it's the big the big Caterpillars and John Deeres and so forth,
Yeah.
CNH. But other than that, there's like a whole sweet spot of OEMs that actually don't have the engineering power to convert those vehicles into electric, and that want to compete with the John Deeres and the Cats and
Yeah.
the CNH. So that's it's pretty fun because one machine is, it's sometimes it's not even the same. They don't build two machines that are exactly the same. So
Yeah. Very specialist market. It does particularly. I think, funnily, in the UK, we've got one big OEM in JCB, and then we don't really for off highway. There's not that many. I'll get shot down. And there's Terex. You've got the what's now Volvo. It was the big rigid truck plant up in Glasgow. So there's a bit of there's the sort of bigger OEMs, basically CNH, obviously in agriculture, but we don't have the sort of that middle tier, particularly of off-highway OEMs, in the same way that in the US, it's mind-boggling. You come across a company that are making this really obscure product that does such a specialist job, and they make like $1,000 a year. And it's like, where do they sell them?
No, and the key to succeed is also different. So we entertain very good relationships with our channel partners and distributors because we can't be everywhere and we can't serve everybody. And we select the right distributors and partners that have the engineering capacity. When I say engineering capacity, I talk about electrical engineers, I talk about software engineers, I talk about mechanical engineers. So not partners that are going to just draw information from you without digesting it. We work with the ones that actually have a team that are investing in electrification, and that's really helping us a lot because we can't be everywhere in the US or in Europe to serve those guys. So yeah, they're completely different markets. And I have to say, from my perspective and on highway, I'm not going to focus on all the OEMs. I'm going to focus on the ones that we have the chances of winning, that value our power electronics, that value our technology, and yeah, we're going to pick and choose who we can work with and who we have a chance of winning. We're not going to answer every single RFQ that comes our way because, as you know, that could be a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Learning who to say no to is it's really they always saying it's a very important skill in business. Do you see as the market is maturing, is it getting more competitive? Or like how does that side of things stack up at the moment?
So right now, everybody's surprised by the level of interest and volume, right? So everybody's chasing, everybody's trying to deliver what they've committed to. So I would say that we're now going to be entering generation 2 of truck development, right? So generation 1 is going in production this year, next year.
Yeah.
Kind of overall design. Generation 2, I think Danfoss has a bigger chances of winning actually in trucks for Generation 2 because right now you see OEMs are buying systems, right? They're buying e-transmissions, they're buying e-axles, they're buying complete packs, the whole system because they just need to get a truck on the road, right?
Yeah.
Generation 2 OEMs are going to start breaking up those RFQs into components, right?
Yeah.
And saying, I want to buy an inverter, I want to buy a charger, I want to buy a motor, and I'm going to put it in my own e-axle or I'm going to put it in my own transmission or whatever they decide to do. So I think we're very well positioned for that part of the market, being a tier 2 supplier today.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be ready to quote the component business in a couple of years actually, because right now Generation 2 is starting now. And it's going to be in production in 2028, 2027, 2028, depending on the OEM. So I think that's the work I'm focusing on, getting our shop, getting the basics right, getting the manufacturing quality where it needs to be, and getting our products where they need to be so that we can quote this second step of truck development.
Right. Yeah. And do you think in that second wave, there'll be sort of a bit more of a focus on optimization and kind of squeezing more efficiency out of a system and cost optimization and things like that? Do you think that's why it will go to more of a component-based approach?
Yeah, I think it's gonna go. I think it's gonna be important to have to to be cost competitive. Of course, they want to understand the cost structure right now because the tier ones have sunk in a lot of their development costs into these unit prices. So now they really want to understand, hey, how much does an e-axle cost? How much does an e-transmission really cost? Do I make it myself or not? And
Yeah,
that's good and bad. That can yield to the OEM saying, hey, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to do it myself. Then there's the other element that people forget to talk about is these truck companies have plants where they make engines and they make transmissions and they make axles. They need to keep these workers with a job, right? So
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's not just about the price of the technology, it's about keeping those people working. And some of these OEMs have said, I will build my own e-axles, I will build my own e-transmissions, and I will
yeah,
build my own electric motors and so forth. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to have to go into components, and there's always going to be a part of systems, right? So, for example, all these specialty vehicles like refuse and all these trucks, right, will continue to be maybe purchased systems,
yeah,
but for the bread and butter of the OEM, where the volume is high, they'll make the components or make the e-axle themselves.
yeah. Much the same, actually, because today, for a diesel engine truck, some OEMs make their own engine, some buy it in from an engine supplier, some buy it in from a company that's effectively a competitor, and same with axles and transmissions and things. It's quite a complex
Yeah.
kind of ecosystem, isn't it? Because of all the special requirements.
Yeah, and you know that what's interesting today, if you look at the North American truck market and the European truck market, so if you take a truck in North America, you can basically customize it the way you want. You can choose the engine, choose the transmission, and choose the axle, right? In North America. In Europe, you don't have that flexibility, right? It comes with the engine. You could choose maybe a different transmission with different ratios and an axle with different ratios. But if it's the OEM's axle, that's what you're going to get, and if it's the OEM's transmission, that's what you're going to get. So that's a different market dynamic. But when with EVs, it becomes kind of the same flavor for everybody, right? So if you're going to buy a truck from an OEM in the future, it's most likely going to be the whole flavor
Yeah,
across the board, right? So I think it's going to be harder for those tier ones that have unique regional positions, right?
yeah,
On axles or on engines or whatever. I think it's going to be harder for them because these EVs are going to be, the same chassis basically, right?
yeah,
And again, which furthers my point on the component business.
yeah, yeah. The ability to swap out an axle if it's actually, the OEM will have an e-axle that they use in a particular weight category of truck, and that's it. There won't be a choice to go with a different axle supplier because you like them and you stock all their spare parts.
Yeah, that's what I see. So I think it's I mean we're all waiting for that to pan out, but I'm pretty happy with the way Danfoss is going on the component side.
Interesting. And I think, I mean, so just checking the time, but we're pretty much out of time. But I was going to ask you about the future and kind of what got you, what you're excited about coming, and I guess you've answered quite a bit of that already in terms of maybe not what to get you excited, but what's coming in the future. If you had to sort of pick a few things out in terms of what you're most excited about coming down the line, what would you say that is?
I mean, I'm excited first of all to see the industry happening. Because you and I have been in this industry forever, and it's always been next year is going to be better. Next year
Yeah,
is going to be
yeah.
better.
I don't feel old enough to,
Um,
I said to somebody today, I don't feel old enough to have been doing this for 20 years. So, yeah,
No, and I,
somehow.
and I think what's interesting for me is right now I see it from even the operational side. So I see the demand coming in from our customers. I see that we need to get our plants ready for the demand, our plants up and running. So it is happening now, and I don't think it's gonna turn back, right? Even if
Mm.
and it's interesting to see that with all the challenges we had on supply chain, on semiconductors, and all those challenges, right? The EV industry didn't slow down. In fact, it accelerated it. So it's really for me that's what keeps me motivated and excited. I still get excited when I see even a school bus with the motor that from my old employer, Dana TM4. It's super exciting to see it actually, live on our streets.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for the future. I think it's going to happen for sure. There's no turning back, and I'm excited that really the company I work for, Danfoss, really took the right bets on semiconductors and silicon carbide. I think that's going to be if you look at the benefits of it in a vehicle and in a commercial vehicle, the high voltage, the efficiency gain, or the high current output that you can get at the same voltage, it's really the right recipe for commercial vehicles.
Cool, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me today and sharing your experience and wisdom, and that's been it's been fascinating to catch up and find out more about what you're doing now. So thanks a lot, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can catch a beer next time. Take care.